So when getting ready to do some development for the ATtiny and the ATmega microcontrollers, we need a few pieces of software to get ourselves going. Firstly, we're going to be primarily working with the programmer, which is a hardware device to send code to the chip. We use the USBTiny inline serial programmer, which you can find here on Adafruit, or you can also find on SparkFun. I'll provide some links in the description below. But what you'll also need too is to download the drivers for this so that your computer can use it. So I'll have also the link here, but firstly we're going to download the drivers off of Adafruit. And just grab the Adafruit drivers. If you want to mess with the source code for the thing, that's fine too, but for the sake of this video we're just going to focus on getting the software and installing it. Yeah, that might come up. Run anyways, and let's install. You can select these other things. Actually, for the sake of just getting all the drivers that we can, let's actually do it. You'll have some drivers for other programmers that you may run into in the future that you might want. Alright, here we're going to tell it to install. And there we are. So that's all there is for the drivers. Okay, so now we're going to download WinAVR. We'll get this off of SourceForge. Links will also be provided in the description below. This is our GCC compiler for C and C++, as it says down here. The main reason we're going to grab this is because of a file called avrdude. This will be what we use to actually use the drivers that we just got from Adafruit to push the code down onto the microcontroller. So let's just download this. And that is now downloaded. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and do the last step, which is we're going to download our integrated development environment, our IDE, Microchip Studio for AVR and SAM devices. Now this used to be called, I think, AVR Studio, and then it was called Atmel Studio, and then just recently it became Microchip Studio. Microchip bought out Atmel a few years back, so now this is part of their property. But if you scroll all the way down on their page here, we will find the download here, the web installer and the offline installer. Me personally, I like grabbing the offline installer just because, yeah, it's a huge download up front, but you'll get all your features and you won't have a corrupt file to deal with, and that just seems to be the best way to do this. So we'll wait for this to download, and then we will install it and install the WinAVR. Okay, so now we've downloaded everything. Let's close out Chrome. And let's first install WinAVR. Now, you don't have to do it exactly the same way I do it, but because of my organization, how I just like to have things organized, I'm going to do it this way. So installer, yeah. Agree. This is the part that I always change up. I don't like putting folders on the root of my C drive that are for software, so I just move this over into program files, x86. You don't have to do this again, like I said, this is just a habit I have. What's nice is wherever I decide to put this, the registry and path entries, like you see right here, are set to whatever you just moved it to, so that's something you don't have to worry about. And there we are. So now we have WinAVR dude installed, or WinAVR dude, sorry, WinAVR with avrdude installed. Close out of this. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to install Microchip Studio, or Atmel Studio as this file name still looks like it's still calling itself. Just double click on that. And just as a note too, when you go to install this thing, make sure if you have any like pending updates that require a reboot, do the reboot first, or the installation will stop you halfway through and say, hey, you needed to do this. So I just came off of a fresh reboot here. We'll check the license agreement. Yeah, we'll do that. So for architecture, I'm going to uncheck UC3. We're not going to really do anything with that. We're definitely going to do stuff with the AVR. That's your Atmels and your ATtiny type microcontrollers. And later on we might do stuff with the SAMDs. So let's click on next. Do that, yes, next. And next. So this thing supports the MP Lab stuff here. We'll just do that, install, yes. And then we're just going to basically let this guy run. This will take a while to install, depending on the speed of your computer. I've seen this take all the way up to like being 10 minutes long for an install. So we'll let this go. Periodically there will be things that come up saying you need to install this driver. Check off to make sure that it's good and whatnot. But yeah, these are things that come up with this installer. License type free, sure. Yep, apply the settings, go for that too, yeah. Always make sure your path variables are set. That way when you do compiling, weird stuff doesn't happen. But yeah, we gotta let the MP Lab compiler get in there. This is kind of new. If you've done Atmel Studio or AVR Studio before that, obviously this was not part of it, because at that time Microchip didn't own Atmel. Now that Atmel is owned by Microchip, they're pushing their stuff inside the software. So we're just going to let this finish and basically click next a whole bunch of times until we get to a finish. And from there, we should have ourselves a full installation of Microchip Studio. Okay, so now we're at the spot here where it's actually going to ask about this host ID thing. Just do what it has right there and just click next and finish. And now comes all the fun stuff for the actual Microchip Studio. Again, like I said, this is a long part of an install, so depending on the speed of your computer, just let it roll. Alright, right here's one of those examples where you need to install some software, or some drivers I should say. Yep, install. These will be good just in case you use a different kind of a programmer, like the Atmel ICE, which will be good if you're doing stuff like SAMD style ARM chips, basically. And there you go. Everything should be set up. So we'll just hit close. It's going to launch Microchip Studio for its first time run. Now, mind you, this box that I'm installing this on also has only 4 GB of RAM, so that's also what's making this kind of slow. In further demos here, we'll be using a machine that's got a lot more RAM on it. And there we are. So this is Microchip Studio. If you're a user of Visual Studio, for like Visual C++, Visual Basic, or Visual C Sharp, this should look kind of familiar to you. But yep, everything's running. One last thing here when you're in the Microchip Studio IDE is we're going to have to set up the USBTiny to work with it as a means of a programming device. So that's real easy to do, but you will have to do this for each microcontroller that you're setting up. So we're just going to do one example right here. We're going to do one for the USBTiny 1884A. So what we'll do is we'll go to Tools, and on here you'll have a few things in the drop down, but what we're going to go for is External Tools. So we're going to select that, and this will bring up this window right here. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to give the title and name. We'll call this USBTiny to ATtiny 84A. And you can call it whatever you want. That's not really dependent on anything, just what you want to call it. The command, now we are getting into specifics, will be avrdude.exe. This is banking on the fact that you've already pathed avrdude, which is why we did the WinAVR installation before this. And then the last part is the arguments. So I have this already typed out in another window over here, which I'm just going to copy in, and I will put that in the link in the description below. And I'll probably blow up this and put it here in the video. But anyways, these are the arguments that tell it where to write the file, how to write the file. Specifically in this case, we're looking for the spot right here that says T84. this is how we're telling it that's the chip we're programming it. So if we're trying to work on like an ATtiny 85, you would have T85. If this was an ATtiny 13, you type in T13. If this was a Mega 328, like what you find on an Arduino, you just have M328, and so on and so forth. But in this case, we're doing a Tiny 84, so we hit Apply and OK. So now when we go into Tools, we'll have this USBTiny to ATtiny 84, and that's how we can program that specific microcontroller with whatever code we have in the IDE. So there you go. That's all you need to do to get the basic software going on your PC to do development on some Atmel microcontrollers, and we'll go over that here in some later videos. Thanks.